waiting for the show, which I start by saying Ruben Amorim is officially now the next Manchester United coach, yet it still has yet to be announced. His sporting team are in action on Friday, and of course at the press conference he was asked about his imminent move to Manchester United.
It's a negotiation between two clubs. It's never easy, even with the clauses. It's never easy. They have to talk. And we'll have clarification after the game. It will be very clear. So it's one more day. After the game tomorrow, we will have the decision made.
Mark Ogden joins us. Mark, what a faff.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never known a manager have to serve a notice during a season before, but it's a strange one, isn't it? It's a strange scenario whereby United are still waiting. Look, the situation is that United and Amorim have agreed the deal that he's going to go to Man United as the new manager. But I've been told it's been held up because Sporting are listed on the Portuguese stock exchange and they have a bond issue right now, and they can't announce to the stock exchange that Amorim has gone until it's signed and sealed. It's not done yet. So United are basically waiting for Sporting to get all their loose ends tied up from the financial markets, and then they can announce it and then they can move forward. But even when that's done, and it could be done tomorrow, Friday, there's no guarantee that Amorim will be there before the international break. It looks like his first game in charge will not be for almost a month. Ipswich away on the 24th of November.
Does that, you know what's worrying? Does that mean we have to watch Sporting tomorrow? It's just flashed over me.
What takeaway will we take away from
How's Amorim? How's his team playing?
Yeah, there you go. Are you in tomorrow?
I am.
Oh, no.
But I have an allergy of watching Portuguese football.
OK.
So
right.
no, but
Mark, why wasn't this all sorted before?
Well, the situation, basically, when they lost to Tottenham in the end of September, United's board realised they had to come up with a contingency plan in case they had to sack Erik ten Hag. But the decision wasn't made then to sack Erik ten Hag. But obviously, 5 games later, they were still pretty rubbish and they had to sack him after the defeat at West Ham. That's when they set in motion the move to get Amorim. So this deal wasn't done before Ten Hag was sacked, but Sunday was the realisation that Ten Hag had to go. So this is all accelerated since Monday. And Sporting have got this clause in his contract which says, yes, he can go if somebody offers 10 million euros to release his clause. But within that clause, there's a 30-day notice period, which again is very odd. It's very weird. It's not something I've ever come across before mid-season. So United are kind of tied up in that. What I don't understand is why United haven't just paid the money. Sporting at some point would have said, yeah, we'll take 1 million, 2 million to release him now, but they haven't done that, which is a bit strange because every game, every point counts for Man United because they're only 7 points off the top 4. As ridiculous as it sounds, they're not out of the running to get in the top 4. I think it's unlikely, but with the new manager coming in, he'll think he can do that. But Chelsea game at the weekend, he's not going to be in charge. Leicester at the weekend after, he's not going to be in charge. That's 6 points, So strange, very strange times at Man United.
United they had to put a contingency plan in case they had to sack Erik ten Hag. Yeah. They couldn't see that in the summer. Who was that one from Laurel and Hardy? Remember, was it Stan that used to just go like that? Oh,
be careful with your hair. Don't
have so much left.
Don't come here, Erik. My mic dropped.
Go on, Shaq.
Listen, I sat here yesterday and said, if we want to give Ineos's kind of backroom staff and director of football and all the names that just kind of keep getting bandied about a free pass as of the summer while they get their feet under the table and figure out what's needed. Fine. But now Mark is saying that the decision, or certainly the realization, somehow only hit everybody at the end of September. We're at the end of October. And if we're talking about Amorim and a 30-day release clause, that's their job. That's what they need to know, need to figure out, and plan as a result. So this kind of wild 24 hours ago, I was talking about giving them a free pass or clean slate. All of a sudden, the first big decision, they've already kind of stumbled in making, and I don't understand it. And why, listen, I sympathise, well, primarily because I do not understand the financial markets and everything that goes into it. So that is what it is, but that's not my job. That's theirs. They're supposed to know that. They're supposed to understand that. They're supposed to anticipate that. They didn't. There's no plan in place, and it just is starting to feel again like same old Manchester United.
Right, I know you can't change this, and we had this discussion yesterday. But Augie, who was in charge of bringing in those players in the summer, Mazraoui in particular, De Ligt, Zirkzee, that smells to me like Erik ten Hag had his fingerprints on those signings. So is that the case?
Yeah, De Ligt was definitely one that Ten Hag wanted, and he pushed. United weren't convinced about De Ligt, but they did it because they felt that overall it was a deal that was not massively expensive. Mazraoui was a deal that they felt that obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka was out of the club and they thought it was an upgrade, and I think I kind of agree with that. He's a guy that can pass the ball better than Wan-Bissaka, who's more of an athlete, so fair enough. Joshua Zirkzee, nobody's taking responsibility for that one at the moment. I'm not quite sure who's to blame or who's to kind of pat on the back for that one, but listen, he's clearly not cutting it right now. But again, it was a kind of a transfer window done by committee. That what I was told is because Dan Ashworth didn't start until July the 1st, and obviously Omar Barada, the CEO, didn't start until then. It was a kind of a mixed bag of a summer because there were certain people that weren't involved. That a lot of the deals were kind of put in place, or the scouting was put in place by John Murtagh prior to his departure in March. So this summer's been a jigsaw puzzle with lots of people putting the parts in place, and they've ended the summer with, a mixed bag of summer and a mixed bag of transfers, because I don't think any of them that come out of it look particularly good. I think Mazraoui's done okay, but he's a right back, and he's basically an understudy right back who's played a lot of games. But you're right, De Ligt was a player that they didn't really need, but Ten Hag wanted him, and they did the deal. And a new manager's coming in with not just Ten Hag's players he's got to deal with, but that squad still has Louis van Gaal players in it. Luke Shaw was signed by Louis van Gaal. Victor Lindelof and Diogo Dalot were signed by Jose Mourinho. So when Amorim comes in, he's got to find a way to make that group of players fit his system. But the players that have been there forever, and a lot of them haven't succeeded at the club in all that time, how's he going to get them to play together? Because there's not going to be any money in January. He's not going to have the funds in January to suddenly buy 3 or 4 players and reshape his squad. So he's going to have to work with what he's got. And that's the difficulty. He is a good coach. He's got a real reputation, but even Pep Guardiola couldn't take on that squad right now and transform it into a Champions League team.
Who's buying the United players? Now, who's buying them?
Well, the committee, isn't it?
No. But what I mean is, I don't mean that. I mean, we understand that. I mean, who is going to come along and buy these players?
That's why they could get them, because no one else wanted them.
Right.
But once again, here we are talking about Ineos, who bought into the club in what, January, February, or whatever it is, at some ridiculous $6 billion valuation or whatever it is. And then Mark is now saying before they get their backroom, their staff in, their director of football and all the names in, they go with the scouting and recommendations of the outgoing director of football. And again, as much leeway as I want to give Ineos, as much as I want to allow them to do their job, they just keep stumbling over every single decision, it seems, that was made. And we aren't talking about some small club that they're just figuring things out. Again, this is a $6 billion valuation of a football club, and everything just feels so amateur.
What about the tea ladies and all the staff that got laid off? Sir Alex Ferguson laid off as well, Mark. And 24 million to change your manager and bring a new one in.
Well, yeah, that £2 million saving on Sir Alex Ferguson, they could have used that to get Amorim to start at the weekend, couldn't they? That's where they were saving it. I mean, yeah, I'll give Ineos the benefit of the doubt. I was told it could take a season to get it all sorted. And they've got a lot of players out of contract in the summer. Maybe I'm being generous here. Maybe we'll see the real Man United under Ineos at the end of this season, when they've had a lot of clearing out to do. The staff was bloated. They have too many people there. It's been, the Glazer regime, Richard Arnold, Ed Woodward, they grew it too big in terms of the wrong areas were overstaffed and the other areas were understaffed. And you can see that when you go to Old Trafford, there's been neglect on the stadium. Some departments are skeleton staff, basically. So it's a big ship that needs turning around, and it can't be done in 6 months. I think Ineos went in there with, a bit naive, thinking they could do it quickly. I think it's going to take a season. But United can't stand still. They can't wait. They can't have a year off and think about this time next year will be okay. They've got to get through it. And it's, at the moment, we're not seeing any kind of benefits at the 14th in the Premier League table, and nothing's actually working well. They've got rid of Ten Hag, definitely 6 weeks too late, probably 6 months too late. But at least they found somehow a coach that a lot of other clubs wanted or were watching, that they haven't actually. I was a little bit concerned that United would do it on the cheap and try and get, a Graham Potter in or a Gareth Southgate. But no, they've actually shown a bit of ambition to go for Ruben Amorim. But the manner in which they've done it is just not convincing. I don't think any other club, Man City, Liverpool, whoever, would have allowed this scenario to develop whereby, yeah, you can understand the Sporting Lisbon element where they can't announce it until they've told the stock exchange, but to wait till the guy manages 3 more games, what does Amorim think about this? You can see he looks a bit frustrated in his press conferences, but he's checked out now. He's not focused on Sporting Lisbon, but he's got to manage 3 more games because United aren't, prepared to go that extra mile and pay what it takes to get him out of the club now. It's just a bit weird, bit odd.
Just taking a look at the upcoming schedule, and let's focus, shall we, on Chelsea. You take a look.
Why didn't they do this in the summer?
I don't know, Craig. I feel like we're going around in circles.
Why don't they pay the 10 million in the summer?
Because they won the FA Cup.
And sort all this out.
Right, that's it.
Back at the end of May, they could have made a big decision. They could have gone to Sporting and done a deal in the summer. He would have been in. The whole thing would have at least been a little bit clearer. But they had no real vision of what they wanted. They just stumbled and stumbled and stumbled and stumbled until they had to make some sort of decision. And now they've, it has been at the moment. At the moment, they're not running it any better than the previous people. I'm sure they will in time, but at the moment, they are not.
Yeah, and that bar was certainly low. Right, let's take a look, shall we, at the odds for Manchester United against Chelsea this weekend. Chelsea come into the game, of course, taking quite a few by surprise with the way they started this season. They come in at 3. You can't separate it. You can't separate it, who they think is going to be the winner going into this draw thing. Can we separate it? Let's take a look at everyone's predictions going into this tie. We certainly can. Wow. Well, this is El Clasico all over again. Where's Louise?
Almost guarantees a Manchester United win.
I thought we hated Chelsea, but it seems that we...
No, you hate Chelsea. As a former Chelsea player.
Man United. Even more. They had this big win against Leicester in the Carabao Cup yesterday, but Leicester made 8 or 9 changes.
Yeah.
It's still difficult to see how United are going to conjure up a decent performance. I suppose the first 45 minutes at West Ham last week, finishing aside, was better. But boy, West Ham were atrocious in the first half. Absolutely atrocious. And it's just hard to see this side putting 90 minutes together. And, you talked about Chelsea there, how they've been a bit of a surprise. They lost to Newcastle in the Cup, but made changes. But going forward, they've looked really good.
Overworking on the training ground. They'd have a defeat or a bad performance, and he'd make them work hard on training ground. He'd make them run, and that was just draining the energy of the players mentally and physically. So I think they're going to get a lift from him not being there. Sad as it is, managers get sacked because the players just switch off, and they switch off because they don't have any warmth for him. It's one of those things. A lot of the players will be happy he's gone because it gives them a bit more freedom.
Right. You talk about Marcus Rashford here. We look at his numbers. Some really good, some pretty average. And I get it. You don't get on with every manager. We've all been there, and some of it has been petty, like the David De Gea stuff to Ten Hag. I know he's gone.
Yes.
But there's no need for all that. There just is not. But Marcus Rashford, and he's not alone here, but because we put the graphic up, we'll talk about him. He needs to get his head screwed on. He does, right? Whether it's a new manager coming in that loves him and puts an arm around him or whatever, doesn't matter. He needs to sort it out for himself. He's one of many, right? He's one of many, but he's a senior player. He's a full international player. When he's on his game, he was in the first 11 in the England team, and he needs to ask himself a question: what kind of Marcus Rashford do I want to be? The one that sort of saunters around and looks as if he doesn't give a toss, or the one that scares defences and scores goals and just drives it fullbacks, works hard? Because we haven't seen that enough. And he's I'm not saying he's a team leader, but he's one of the most experienced players in there. And I think him, along with many, many others, a lot of them are not good enough to be at the football club. He is. Mm-hmm. But it's up there with Marcus Rashford. And you can't keep saying, well, I didn't get on with that manager and I didn't get on with that manager. Sometimes you've got to go out. Guess what? You've got to do it for yourself and your family and your career. And he's a classic case to me of somebody who, an absolute classic, got his new contract after that big season he had a couple of years ago and licked the stamp on the postcard and mailed it in.
Right.
That's what it looks like to me.
I have to say, I love Marcus Rashford. I think he's an incredibly talented footballer, and I look at Manchester United's setup, particularly with Ruud van Nistelrooy as a part of it. And while Craig's right, you consider Marcus Rashford one of the more senior, certainly one of the more experienced players within that dressing room. I just feel that he needs that kind of person to call on, that he can speak with, because I just feel he's not far off being the Rashford that we saw post-2022. But kind of give him a lot of the dysfunction behind the scenes and on the sidelines at Manchester United, you wonder if that played a part.
You really are giving people a lot of leeway
but
in the last couple of days.
At the same time, we're only a few weeks away from Marcus Rashford having the best 45 minutes we've seen from him for 18 months, and Ten Hag taking him off at halftime. Now, as a young player trying to get back into
he's 27.
As a 27-year-old player as any player trying to get back into any kind of form, you don't need that. And you don't need that from the sidelines. So, all that being said, I just feel, while, yes, absolutely there is a lot of deadwood, a lot of players can be better, what's been happening behind the scenes and managerially with Manchester United has not helped.
The reason I say that is because you can really... The other ones, you can question whether Højlund's going to be good enough. At the moment, the answer would be for Man United, no. Zirkzee, forget it. Anthony, forget it. Garnacho stood up. But the reason I say about Rashford is because he is good enough. He is good enough to produce more. The others, you can sort of forget about them, most of them. I mean, young Højlund, I don't want to be too harsh. He's a squad player. He's a worker, he's a grafter. Maybe he'll learn, maybe he'll come on a little bit more. But for those that are already there, that are ready-made to go and play, that's why I'm harsher on him. I'm not so harsh on Anthony, because he's nothing more. He's a clown. He's a flash in the pan. That's what he is. He wants to clown around and treks and do all that sort of stuff, right? That's not what they need. They need people that are going to roll the sleeves up and do the business. And the reason we're picking Rashford more than these others, because he can. He can, but whether it's the reasons that Shaq said and has mentioned, or whether I suspect there is more to it than that, and in his head, it's almost like he wants people to feel sorry for him. Don't. Just get out there and do what you're good at.
I'm calling it. That's it. Enough of Manchester United.